DAP has always been known in Malaysia, in the Malaysian political context, as the urban party. It's the party that wins all the urban seats and simply don't even bother trying to contest semi-urban and rural seats. In order for us to contest the current political realities in Malaysia, whereby we're facing issues and problems with our coalition partners, we have to start thinking out of the box, and out of the box means venturing into grounds previously uncharted, and that means going into semi-rural grounds and rural grounds, or semi-urban and rural grounds. So it was decided that the geographical context, the geopolitical context within Malaysia is DAP and the opposition movement in general has been fairly strong on the peninsula. Malaysia is split into West Malaysia and East Malaysia. When I refer to Peninsular Malaysia, I mean West Malaysia. When I talk about Borneo or Sabah and Sarawak, I mean East Malaysia. East Malaysia, just to give you some background, okay. Malaysia consists of about 30 million population, and East Malaysia, as you can see, the total population of East Malaysia in 2010, which was the last census carried out, national census carried out, was 5.77 million, and that's gone up to about 6 million now. That basically equates to 20.4% of the entire population. Sabah, Sarawak and Labuan, meaning the entire East Malaysia, its total parliamentary seats are 57 out of 222. So if you do the maths, it's essentially a quarter of the seats in the Malaysian parliament. And it's been essentially a tradition since the formation of Malaysia, and since the formation of Malaya and then Malaysia. The East Malaysian vote bloc has been predominantly and overpoweringly won by the ruling regime. With the poverty rate of the whole of East Malaysia standing at 70%, which means that out of every 10 East Malaysian, 7 of them are below the poverty line. Now, when I talk about below the poverty line, I'm not even going into the discussion about their income. Some of these aren't even participants. A lot of East Malaysians within this below the poverty line bracket, they don't even participate in modern economy. They don't even have access to water, energy, healthcare, education, and not only that, they don't even have accessibility to that in terms of public infrastructure. So, both electorally and from a humanitarian angle, as well as to take care of the interests of fellow Malaysians, DAP, my party, felt that not only is that right ground for us to chart into, previously uncharted, but also we actually find ourselves seeing this as an electoral opportunity. So, we thought we'd come up with something called Impian Malaysia. Okay, Impian in the national language of Malaysia means dream, the Malaysian Dream, and one of the founding principles of DAP as a party 49 years ago was to realise the Malaysian Dream. You know, I don't want to make references to Martin Luther King, you know, the American dream and we have a dream, but it's something along those lines. So, what is that dream? The objectives of this project called the Malaysian Dream is essentially these: to provide or look into channels in which we start providing basic infrastructure, gravity-fed water system, reconstruction of bridges, reconstruction of jetties, reconstruction of traditional buildings, construction of basic roads, economic uplift projects, oil palm seedlings, etc., etc. I'm not going to read through all of that. But essentially, it's about opening up social, economic opportunities. But before we do that, we need to start looking at the very bare fundamentals: roads, water supply, energy supply, but in a sustainable manner. Okay, just to show you, up until now, there's actually been more than that. This is a bit of an outdated thing, but just to give you a bit more of a, sorry, one more slide here. Now, this is the map of the entire East Malaysia. The bit on top there, the one on the right top corner, that's the Malaysian state of Sabah, and the long part on the bottom is Sarawak. We split it into Impian Sabah and Impian Sarawak. Okay, and these are the various projects that we've actually done. I'll be showing you some videos in a minute, but essentially just to give you I've told you what we do. I'd like to show you the messaging, the form of messaging, or the feel that we like to send through our website, and you can see how that's translated into slightly more concise, slightly more political, but at the same time without being overly political through our website. Now, this is our website. You can go on it. It's impianmalaysia.com. Now, it's very, very, very volunteer driven. We're trying to project the image that this is a non-political mission. This is a non-political project, despite the fact that this is very, very clearly initiated and started off by DAP, the second largest political party in Malaysia. Why? Because the electoral background to it is the fact that in the last two general elections, back in 2008, we gained historic grounds where we denied 2/3 majority from the ruling regime. In the last general elections, the 13th general election, we managed to gain 52% out of the entire election in terms of majority vote, and in my home state we managed to get 55% of the majority vote, but still we couldn't form government because of gerrymandering and lots of other challenges. Out of these two elections, people felt like they've done all they can and everything they can. They've voted for us, but we still couldn't form government. So there is still, until this very day, an increasing notion of political fatigue, political lethargy, and people just don't want to participate in politics anymore because they feel that their vote don't count. So we had to find another channel, i.e. humanitarian projects such as this. Now, join us in our mission to make Malaysia a better place for all Malaysians. So there's not really much political messaging behind it. We talked about roads just now. We're not talking about big, huge, 80 feet highways. We're talking about bare, basic access from a remote, rural, Aboriginal, indigenous village to the closest town or city or the closest settlement. Easier access to schools, hospitals, and not the dream. We will build simple access roads. Return water rights. Running water is not a privilege, but a basic right. A simple gravity feed water system can provide that facility to an entire community. Light up their nights, power up the villages and give them a brighter future. Micro hydropower or solar system can provide sufficient electricity to a community. And uplift rural economy. We aim to improve the livelihood of villagers and reduce their dependency on cash handouts. Now, this is essentially the messaging. Short, sharp, 2 to 3 sentences to each and every single subtopic of projects we want to carry out under Impian Malaysia. Water, road, energy, and economy. And how that translates into another level of subcategorization is, obviously, we have on the left here, water, gravity feed, access, increased accessibility to communities, infrastructure, communities share common facilities like public toilets. Despite the fact that the common impression Malaysia tries to send out is that we're a thriving economy, we're a thriving democracy, we have 6%, 5 to 6%, and sometimes even 7% annual GDP growth. we still have a large percentage of half of Malaysia, geographically, still having no access to water and roads and schools and education and energy. So, infrastructure, energy, education, health, and economy. So essentially, we make it simple for people to understand when they consider wanting to volunteer. And then once they're in, it's also easier for them to identify which part they want to contribute once they've signed up. So, now down to the actual projects. Now, just to show you a visual representation of projects we have already carried out. And for each color code, each color kind of pointer is essentially one project that we've thus far completed, following the color-coded project subcategories just now. And rather than me telling you what it is, I think this is where the progressive campaigning comes. Once you've done the humanitarian aid, once you've carried out the action, it's all about capitalizing politically from it. Because otherwise, you'll just be doing something for that small community. The larger picture of it is that what you've contributed in terms of what you've brought to that small community, it has to translate into real political messaging as to what DAP and what the opposition movement is trying to do. We're trying to show the Malaysian population at large that, number one, there is a failure in terms of planning, in terms of governance from the sitting government, and number two, the opposition movement, despite the fact that we're limited in terms of resources, we can still make a difference through crowdsourcing, through crowdfunding. So let's show you one of the videos. I'm hoping that this is quite loud, so I'm just hoping that the internet works. Just to talk you through this is what some villages in the remote rural villages in Sabah and Sarawak have to face. They have to walk up to an hour and a half to the closest water source, an hour and a half back. And these are actually water drums promised, well, basically given by the sitting government in promise of some kind of a water feed system. So before election, they'll give them these water drums and essentially hold these communities to ransom and say, if you vote for us, we will put water in these drums. Lo and behold, after the election, the water drums are still sitting there with no sight of any water feed into the drums. Just going to translate, what's been just said is, during the dry season, the water that we have to use, that we have to travel half an hour to, the closest water source, which is a well, isn't that great. And you just have to live with skin allergies and the water not being that great. One of the key messages that we try to send subconsciously is, we've been independent from our colonial masters for now 58 years. Which means that the sitting government, who's never been changed, we've never succeeded in toppling them, 58 years. This is what we're still seeing. And if this is not the time to change, what is? Without actually saying that overtly. Everything in life, in our lives, needs water. If there's no water, we can't do anything.
Our mission to help the poor and disadvantaged. We invite you to lend us a hand as we embark on this nationwide effort to achieve uniting Sarawak together. Sarawak is the key to change. Time to move on.
means change in Malaysia. And if you note the messaging there, reading between the lines, when Teresa said Sarawak is the key to change, she was referring to the often just pummeled messaging that Sabah and Sarawak is 25% of the seats in Parliament. So we talk about that in our rallies, we tell people that in other videos, but when we talk about this feel-good factor, this compulsion factor, we just use the sentence. Sarawak and Sabah is the key to change. So I think that's all I'd like to share. There is actually another video, but I don't want to hold back time because we've got other speakers. For those who want to see the successes of some of the water theme projects, some of the infra projects, just go to Impian Malaysia, or just contact me via the steering committee email, and I'm sure I'll be able to point you in the right direction to make references to what we've done. So thank you very much. Any questions, I'm sure we'll have a Q&A session after this.